All right, Kevin, I am extremely excited about having you here. Thanks for making the trip across the country to be here. And I just got on Instagram and I just shared a little story about wanting to switch up the podcast a little bit. I've talked to you about this and talked to everyone around here about this, but like for you guys listening, I kind of want to go a bit of a different direction in 2025. I want to, like with the podcast, I want to really create these like little mini master classes so that I can, give this episode a title and a headline, a thumbnail, and actually deliver on that topic and really hone in and dive deep on 1 to 3 topics per episode. So have you here today, and we're going to talk everything human performance and really give you like a human performance blueprint. So welcome to the show, Kev.
Man, Ryan, I'm so grateful to be here. Love what you do. And yeah, thanks for bringing these type of conversations to the line world and utility world. It's pretty awesome.
They're super important to have. And when we talk human performance, I know some people like, hopefully you haven't switched off the episode already. Like, oh God, what are they talking about again? But like, honestly, like we want to dive in on ways to make you healthier.
Yeah.
Whether that's physical health, mental health, whatever, it's important. And it's the way you're going to like survive your career, survive your life, survive your family life, whatever it is. You got to get right with yourself in order to make that happen. And so we want to like help give you the tools to do that.
Yeah. And it's not just surviving your career too. It's like, how are you showing up in all aspects of life as your best self and get to the end of your career and actually get to enjoy all the hard work that you put in. So yeah, that's what it's all about.
Give me a little history on yourself, who you are, where you come from, that sort of thing.
Yeah. No, I grew up in Washington State, kind of small town. Everyone in my family was farmer, fisherman, or a logger. My dad actually happened to go he's a chiropractor, and I grew up playing a ton of sports and have 3 brothers and a sister. And what's funny is now there are like 3 of us boys are chiropractors. And
oh, no kidding.
So yeah, we all kind of went down that path. But a big part of it was just, I experienced a lot of injuries. I'm not huge, but played middle linebacker. And so I just got beat up but I loved it. And so I just realized, you know what? There's something here, something that I want to do to be able to help others be able to recover from injuries so that they can get back to playing and performance. And then, again, just be able to live their best life. And so that led me down a path of going to chiropractic school, pursued some really specific things related to optimizing human performance and soft tissue injuries, and had the chance pretty early on to start working with the U.S. women's ice hockey team, travel with them for a couple of years, and then spent 10 years working with the United States Olympic swim team as part of their sports medicine staff. And so 2012, 2016 Olympics, and just like phenomenal experience being able to work with, these athletes who perform at such a high level. And I kind of think of them almost like, Formula One vehicles, and I was kind of the mechanic and just had the opportunity to work with them on how do we fine tune them so that they can perform at the highest level. And then in 2016 I was asked by a utility up in Washington State if I could basically adapt what I was doing with these athletes to their workforce. And so we started a pilot with about 1,200 utility workers, so substation, line, gas employees, generation employees. And in that first year, we just saw a tremendous improvement, like 53% reduction in soft tissue injuries. They saved like $670,000. And I was like, okay, there's something here. But it also, for me, it really hit home just on a personal level, because I worked every summer job. Like I was like, bucking hay bales, working out in the fields. Then I spent my college summers working for the tree trimming crew for the public works department, the road crew. So just like I saw, the people that I had grown up working with. And then, my grandpa was a pipe fitter for 44 years, raised cattle on the side. And I just remember when he would come home at the end of the day, he was so broken down. Like it would literally take him like 30 seconds just to stand up straight. And he would just say stuff like, this is what getting old looks like. And it was just this mindset of like, you should work hard your whole life, and the expectation should be that you're broken down. That's what we all do. And so when all this stuff came together and I started working with people, I was like, I see my grandpa everywhere I turn, and I'm like, it does not have to turn out like what it did for him. Mm-hmm. And so it just has really become my life's passion, because what I realized is my grandfather, he didn't have a framework for how to take care of his body. So he knew more about how to take care of his tools, his vehicle, his fences, and his own body. And I mean, if you don't maintain stuff, it's going to break down. And so that's really, what I do now is like, how do we bring this structure to utility and line workers so that they can get to the end of their careers feeling their best.
How did you originally get hooked up with utility industry? Like, how did that connection finally?
It was so funny. It was one of the executives at this company was a patient in my clinic, and so I was just working on their shoulder, and their next stop was surgery. And I mean, it was pretty simple fix. It was just like, the shoulders, I'm going to go on a tangent here for a second, but the shoulder's crazy. It's like 17 muscles that hold these 3 bones into place. Everything has to work perfectly. And so it's almost like a tent. If you put up a tent and any of the cords are, tighter than the other, it's going to distort the whole tent. And so for that individual, it's just like some of the cords were too tight in the front and it's pulling everything forward. And so it's just balancing it out. And, pretty soon it's like, oh, my shoulder maybe doesn't need to have surgery. So I think it was one of those ahas for that individual that, a lot of stuff that maybe people are dealing with may not be as severe.
That's crazy, because like most of us, like you said, will think that that's like, I got this for life.
Totally.
I haven't been able to get rid of this for 6 years.
Yeah.
And, whatever. I don't believe you.
Yeah.
Like, I've been working on it.
Yeah. So I see a tremendous opportunity, and I think it comes out of a ton of respect. I mean, I sold the farm. I stopped working with the swim team. I sold my clinic to go down this path because I was just like, there's so much opportunity here, and everything that we're doing to help support the musculoskeletal health of the workforce is like 25 years outdated. Like no athlete does what we do in the industry as a standard. And so just to me, it seemed like a really good opportunity to move things up a few notches.
Explain that a little bit more then, like what you're doing.
Yeah. So a big part of what I see as the solution is it all comes back to education, and it's teaching people about how their body works, just, at a baseline level, and then giving them a framework so that they can basically, fine tune their muscles, their joints. They can troubleshoot when problems come up, rather than just focusing on, a 5-minute stretch and flex at the start of the day is going to, protect everyone. It goes beyond that. And so what I found is that when people learn principles, they learn how to like roll out certain muscles, how to focus on improving their breathing technique, when they focus on mobility rather than just static stretching. In certain instances, that's a huge opportunity for them to start to take control of their body, as opposed to just like, willy-nilly try to, prevent injuries through, just some type of stretch and flex or check the box.
Interesting. So what did you find then? Like, what did you find like right off the hop is like step one that utility workers, linemen, whatever people in our space can do to start making a change?
Yeah. So, and we've talked a lot about this leading up to this conversation, is that, everything in life is small habits on a consistent basis that lead to, long-term change. And so I think sometimes people, they think about this and they're like, I don't want to exercise, I don't have an hour. So it's just like, what are the different things that people can do? And I always try to bucket it into 3 different categories. So the one bucket is like body maintenance, muscle and joint maintenance. An example, you've used one of those rollers, roll out your muscles. It's different than, stretching a muscle, but it really helps restore the health of the tissue. But I oftentimes tell people no amount of like doing that can offset chronically putting your body in the wrong position or using the wrong tool when you're performing your job, because that's going to put increased stress on your body. So how do you position your body so that you're strengthening your body as you work versus breaking yourself down? How are you ensuring that you're using the right tools so that you can maximize your efficiency? And then number 3, and we'll probably spend a lot of time talking about this, is based on like just the recovery aspect. Like, what are the things that, the hydration, the nutrition, the sleep, stress reduction, all those things that allow our body to recover. I know you're going to have a couple of Olympians here on the podcast here coming up, and they'll tell you that they focus almost as much on recovery as they do the training itself. Because if you just train, and don't focus on the recovery, that only lasts so long. And then you start to fall into this chronic breakdown mode. And I think a lot of people they just feel like they can't dig out of that hole. And so again, there's no magic bullet, but if you can start to just work on a few things here, a few things there, you can start to get ahead of that.
I have so many questions, because from being in that spot before and just like having to work on the tools day in and day out, and not having things like time on your side, because like you've seen these guys spend 12, 14 hours a day on the job. But what you're talking about is actually being able to do a few things while you're on the job, even, that can hugely help. It's just like things like ergonomics, like thinking about how you're actually moving and picking things up and putting things down, like pulling cable, like whatever it is. Like, there's positions you can put your body in that are going to benefit you. There's positions that you can put your body in that are going to harm you. Yeah. So it's doing those over a consistent amount of time. Like you said about the like rolling out. There's so much shit on the internet. And I've seen so many people say like, oh, like rolling out is useless. It doesn't do anything. Like, and I want to bust that myth as well and get you to dive in on that, because even something as silly as that, like as silly in quotation marks, but somebody will see that. Like, I've seen it online. Like, people say that it's dumb, it doesn't do anything. It's, I'd love for you to explain why that's not right, and it actually can help with whatever it can help with. But what do you like? So what do you start with? You start with, the way we've broken it up is like we start with a purpose and a why, right? Yeah. So let's talk about how you find your why. Yeah. Right off the go, because like if you don't have a reason to get going on this stuff and change your physical body, your mental state, those sorts of things, if you can't find your purpose, find your why, none of it's going to work, because you're just not going to stick with any of it. So talk about like how you've found your purpose, and relate that to, us in the trade and life.
Man, there's a lot there.
Yeah.
But, I think, Simon Sinek wrote that book, Start With Why. And I think that it's so important that each of us, no matter what you're trying to accomplish, there's that bigger picture and belief in that, you matter to this world. And I've got 2 boys and my wife, and, so much of what I do and the choices I make revolve around, wanting to spend time with them, wanting to, live a long, healthy life so I can keep up with them and, do the things that I find joy with. And so I think for anyone when they're starting out, it's, what is their why? Because, I primarily operate in the space of, muscle, joint health, just overall wellness. But man, when you're beat up and you're exhausted at the end of the day, it's hard to bring your best self to the table. And, like my grandpa, I still remember I was like 10 years old. My favorite thing was going over to their house, playing in the barn, running around in the hay and riding horses. But by the time he was like in his mid 60s, it was like, he just wanted to go to his den at the end of the day. And it stopped. It changed our relationship. And so I think that, even if you're in your 30s now, you have to have that long-term view of what do I want life to look like, later on down the road, so you can live that best life. And I think too, it also comes down to like just this belief of purpose or identity, whatever you want to call it. Like I really feel like, my role and responsibility in this world is to be able to help people become the best version of themselves. And, whether that was working with the Olympic team and just being able to help them fine tune their performance so that they could perform at their highest level, or it's, working with line workers, we can do that same thing, and I can live out that purpose in that life. But I think for, all of your listeners, they have a different purpose too. And if you approach it like, my identity is a server and protector of my community, and I just happen to be a lineman. I mean, you could be different professions, but I mean, the role that your listeners play is incredible. Like, they serve the community so well. And so when they can do that at their best, it's having a huge impact on the people around them.
This is something I had to go through recently as well. And like, I was talking to a therapist the other day that I'm hopefully going to have on the show here, like I was saying, and her father was a lineman, and her father was a retired lineman. And so we started talking about, because I was mentioning how as I do this, I'm getting further and further from being on the tools in the trade. Like, I've almost gone as much time off the tools as I did on the tools. I spent 15 years, like from 2000 to 2015, working as a lineman every day.
Yeah.
And then moved to different aspects, like some office roles. I did some instructing where I got to, put the belt and the hooks back on and get on poles and towers and help students learn. So I was kind of like back in it a little bit. And now I'm pretty much doing like this role, like podcasting and marketing, like full time now. So I'm still in the industry. I still was a part of, but I love what you're talking about with like finding your why, because whether it was an experience like mine where I didn't like retire from the trade, but I'm like kind of distancing from it a little bit now, like the everyday stuff, or you're like that retired lineman where one day you retire and that's it. Like, you were a lineman for 50 years, but now it's like, you're not. Yeah. Like, you are, it was this thing that you did, but are you anything else?
Yeah.
And I think for so many linemen, they adopt the identity of I am a lineman, and then that's it. But like, one day you're not. 100%. You either die, hopefully not, or you retire, or you move on and do something else. Like, but if that's become your identity and that's your purpose in life, is to just be a lineman, you're going to go through some stuff after that's going to be very difficult if you don't like figure out other things. So like, I like what you're saying about your why and your purpose being like more to like serve, and if you start adopting that mindset, like, I'm here to serve versus I'm here to just be a lineman, it's completely different. Like, you can still be a fantastic, great lineman, but you can serve your whole life in different ways. Yeah. That's totally. One of the things that I've kind of like flipped. Like, I'm here to serve. Like, I'm trying to serve linemen still.
Yeah.
I am a lineman. I can throw hooks on. I can still climb.
Yeah.
I still can do that, but I don't. And I probably won't for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and I think it goes back to that, exactly what you said. It's like, you don't make your vocation your identity, or you don't find it there. You bring your identity to your vocation, which is a totally different scenario, because, you see this a lot in athletics. Like, people spend their whole life as an athlete, and then they get to the end of their career, and it's like
100%.
You talk to, how many of them deal with depression and just like identity crisis. And it's because, so much of their life was found in that activity versus, this is just what I'm doing with my identity at this phase of my life. And I mean, Ryan, you're a storyteller, and you've probably been a storyteller your whole life. And so you've used that experience as a lineman to bring stories to listeners and to help build up other people. And so it's pretty cool to be able to see how you've taken that and started to thread it in different ways other than just climbing poles and working out of buckets and doing stuff like that. So it's really important, because if you don't have that bigger purpose, you hit those junctures and it's like, man, what am I doing?
What are so working with athletes or working with patients, working with clients in the utility industry, drawing from your wide perspective on this, what are then some practical steps that you've seen people take to be successful in finding their why? Like, what are some like 3 things that people can do to go, okay, this is what I can do to start to find my why? Because some people are like, I don't even know where to start.
Yeah. Well, I think it takes some reflection. I mean, it's stepping back and I oftentimes think that it's important to like, tell the truth to yourself about a few things. And so you need to step back and you need to say like, what are the things that I've believed about myself that maybe aren't true? Something that somebody told me like, you're a lazy, no good SOB. And so you spend your whole life trying to prove to everyone that that's not what you are. You know what I mean? And I think a lot of us, we go down this route of like, when we believe that, then we get in defensive mode. And so we're constantly thinking about like self-protection, self-promotion. How do I do that? And so I think that really being honest with yourself of like, what are you trying to be that maybe you aren't, is like such a important first step. And then the next is just stepping back. And I always think about like, who are the people in my life, whether that's a teacher or a coach or my parents or someone who really like saw me for who I am. And I think we've all had, somebody who's spoken into us and they said something to us and we're like, man, I think they nailed it. That's really who I am, and lean into that. And I think that's, a good way to, again, lean into, who you really are. And then it's saying, what's important to me and how am I going to now live my life so I can, focus on those things that matter to me. So again, if you have a kid, a grandkid, and you're like, this is me showing up to work, being safe, coming home at the end of the day, getting to the end of my career, not being broken down so I can do these things with those people. I think that you have to have that bigger picture of like what's important to you. So yeah, that's typically the approach. Well, that's the approach that I went through. Cause I spent my full, career as an athlete and then went through a little bit of an identity crisis cause I wasn't an athlete anymore. And then, working with elite and professional athletes, and I was like at the top of my career. And then, I started working with utility companies, and everyone's like, "You're just selling your clinic. You're doing this, like all this stuff." So I've personally gone through some of that, but now it's just like I think in this space, I just absolutely feel like this is where I should be, and the people I should be helping.
It takes, you're 100% nailed it. It takes starting with like deep work.
Yeah.
And so many people are completely scared of doing that for probably a number of reasons. Scared of what will, like, it's Pandora's box, right? Yeah. What's going to come out of this if I open that? But it's all beautiful stuff that comes out.
Totally.
Like, if you're like willing to dive into it, I guess, and deal with it.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it's all good stuff. I like that. You'll find your purpose and your why if you start to like actually sit down and do some deep work.
But you have to be thoughtful about it. It's not just something you're going to, spend 5 minutes and figure out what that purpose looks like.
Dude, like my journey just even over the last year. And like, I feel like some of us go through this like many times in life too. Like there's moments where you go through this, self-work. And then you make some changes and then you let yourself go and then you go through it again on a different level, and there's levels to it.
Yeah.
Over this last time, man, it's been heavy podcasts, audiobooks, like walks, like honestly walks, or like if you guys don't want to just walk, you like rucking or something like that. Like I loved rucking.
Yeah.
Just throwing something heavy on your back so you're doing something a little bit difficult and listening to audiobooks or podcasts or just like nothing even.
Yeah.
No music, just go, things like that. It's the thinking.
Yeah.
I don't think we give ourselves enough time these days to think either. So much of it's filled with sitting down and scrolling or dopamine hits or things like that. But just like sitting down and like having nothing in front of you, no screen, no device, and just like thinking. I think there's like something to that as well.
Oh, for sure. And we just live in a different culture. I mean, I was getting on the plane last night and I was walking down the aisle and it's just like every single person is just like looking at their phone. And I'm guilty of it too, but it's just, you have to be super intentional to, think at a deeper level rather than just consuming content all the time.
So what are some other, then like some of your daily routines or some of the things you tell clients to do on a daily basis to help keep them in that direction of like figuring this out?
Yeah. Well, again, I love what you were talking about, like adding movement to those times when you're thinking too. I mean, there's so much research that shows like when you're moving, your brain is activated and you can think at a deeper level. So, I mean, we encourage people to, take that time to, invest in their body, to incorporate movement into their day, to focus on, stress reduction. I'm a big believer in things like, focused breathing. And so when I do that, it definitely helps me. I mean, the Jocko Willink, box breathing can be awesome. You know what I mean? And then just doing hard stuff, like you said, I do a ton of cold plunging and, do saunas, stuff like that. And those are the moments where it just shuts everything else out. And you have to be able to, focus on your breathing, focus on the moment. And those are some of the
walk through cold plunging a little bit, because straight up, is it a fad or is it here to stay?
Well, I mean, cultures have been doing it for, hundreds, if not thousands of years. So I think that, it's social media has definitely made it feel like a fad. But I mean, there's more and more emerging research that does show that it helps like calm the nervous system. It can help with inflammation.
Explain some of that physiological stuff then.
So
nerdy science stuff.
Yeah. So when you submerge yourself, what it does do is it brings all the blood flow from like extremities into the core. It lowers the heart rate. We know that metabolically, even after you get out of the water, your body is starting to burn some of that fat instead of just, just pulling from the glucose that is available. So there are some things just physiologically that can help. But I think too, and this is more anecdotal, is that it definitely does help just slow down my thinking. So like I'll oftentimes do it before I go to bed, and it's something that I just every single time I do, I'm like, man, I feel like I sleep better, I feel better. I live in Washington State, like right next to the Puget Sound, so I'm like a 5-minute drive from the water. So I'll just go out in the Puget Sound and up to my neck for 5-10 minutes. And
interesting.
My wife
before
and I do it.
bed.
Yeah.
I've heard a lot of people do it like first thing in the morning, like do it and then go work out.
Yeah.
So it's like more just like find your time. Like what's best for you. Experiment with it a little bit.
I personally don't like to do it right before I work out. So like end of the day works pretty well for me.
Huh.
Yeah.
What about heat?
Yeah. I mean, like saunas, we have an infrared sauna that we use. And again, I think it goes back to putting some stress on your body, but doing it in a controlled way. There's a lot about then bring all the blood, to the peripheral system. I will say I'm not an expert on knowing all the science from a sauna perspective, but the heat definitely does help, clean out the pores. It gets you sweating. It does increase the heart rate just a little bit. So I just find that kind of back and forth between the cold plunge and the heat has been something that has helped me for sure. And it helps with flexibility.
There's a place I used to go to when I lived in Vancouver. It was in Whistler. It was called Scandinave Spa, I think.
Exactly what you're talking about, yeah.
Man, this place, I didn't know what to expect going there for the first time. It's kind of the first time I've been to anything like this, but it's basically a series of cold plunges and saunas or steam rooms. It's hot and cold therapy, just for anyone that's wondering out there. But since we're talking about like finding your why and the recovery portion is later, it'd be great for recovery as well, I'm sure. But like even just like centering yourself, calming your mind down, calming your brain down, getting you focused. So you go to a place like this, it's just like cold plunge. You get out of the cold plunge, you do some heat, and then you relax and chill and kind of regulate your temperature again. And you just like, there's no talking, there's just a little bit of light music or no music. There's different resting areas. So you just do this for the course of the whole day, just cold plunge, heat, rest, cold, heat, rest. And man, talk about like feeling zen the fuck out by the end of it.
Totally.
Completely.
Yeah.
Like you're focused, you're just like calm, you're deregulated, like it's good. So anyone trying to figure out like you got a lot of going on in your life and you're busy and you need to like calm the dopamine levels and just like regulate yourself a little bit, check something like that out and go sign up for it and do it.
100%. And again, that's stuff that different cultures have done for forever.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I know.
It feels like this like really new thing that we're doing, but I mean, people
have you heard about cold plunges?
Yeah. So
get some Norwegian guy to like, come on, this Finnish guy, son, come on. How do you personally stay connected to your why on the daily? Say you found your purpose, you found your why a long time ago. How do you like continually stay connected to that throughout time?
Yeah. And again, I think each person is going to find the path for them that helps them stay on that why. I mean, for me, faith is a huge part of my life. And so, I mean, first thing I do every single morning, I'm up at 5 a.m. and I spend about an hour reading, focused on what am I going to do that day that's going to, be in line with, who I am as a person, the roles and responsibilities that I have. And so that definitely keeps me grounded. And, exercise, fitness, all that stuff is kind of a non-negotiable for me. I've developed a lot of patterns of I can tell if I eat like a bunch of sugar, like I just feel bad the rest of the day. And so there are just things that I've gotten to a point in my life where, I know what works and what doesn't work. But it takes a lot of effort. And that's the thing too, for your listeners too, that, they don't live in an ideal world all the time. I mean, you can't do that when you're on storm watch. And that's the thing that I think is so challenging for a lot of people in this profession, is that, you might be working 14, 16 hours a day, 5 days in a row for a storm. And it's like, you're just barely hanging on. And it's like your choices for food are stopping at a mini mart. And so, but I think when you start to create small habits that happen on a consistent basis, then you start to understand like what things work for you, what things, are not going to be productive. And then you can start to make some of those changes. But again, going back to your question about the why, I think part of that is you make decisions on helping you, again, be your best, because you have that bigger vision of like, the long-term consequences of what you're doing today and how that impacts things.
I've noticed that as well, like going through this journey of losing some weight and eating differently. It's like, it goes back to that hard things and doing hard things again. Like it's freaking hard, like most people know, to lose a bunch of weight, for example. But going through that, you learn how to like make different choices with what you're eating. You learn that if you get on a program and you start having to eat by this program, it changes how you think about food, your relationship with food, how you deal with hunger, because like you're now retraining your body in a different way. So this is what like I didn't understand when I was like out on a storm call, right? And if you're trained to eat, like if you're training yourself to eat one way and it's unhealthy, and then you go on a storm call and all you have are what seems like unhealthy choices, and you're always hungry because that's just how you've trained your body to be, always hungry. It's a lot different than like if I was to go to it now, I would be able to get through periods of not eating with a completely different mindset and probably be able to get through it without even feeling hungry because I've done that now. I've gone through this numerous times and I know what it feels like. It's like, okay, I know I'm just going to be hungry and it's like, whatever. It's like, it's weird because it's just like something your mind can deal with now. I don't know if you found that too, but like whatever the situation is, whether it is hunger or something like that, it's like doing hard things. If you put yourself through these hard things, like cold plunges. And now you're out working a winter in Canada and it's freaking freezing and cold. It's like, okay, I know what it feels like to be cold. I know that I can deal with this. I can use things like breathing or whatever mindset strategies to help deal with this and get through it. I know what this feels like. You've gone through it before. It's not like you're experiencing it for the first time. I don't know. It's just a little bit, I don't know. There's something there, I think.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think doing hard things on a consistent basis, just it continually reframes like what you're capable of. And but then at the same time, like maintaining discipline during those times, I think also it's hard, but I love that Jocko quote, like discipline equals freedom. Like when you are disciplined, it just gives you the freedom to do other things. But yeah, you've got to support yourself during those hard times. It's just making it that much harder is not productive either. So like when you're on a storm, you know it's going to be hard. So it's like, okay, how do I prepare and maybe take an extra 10 minutes so that I have good nutrition. I've got good food with me. I've got my hydration stuff. I've got everything I need so that I can be successful when I'm doing this hard thing. I think that's part of it as well, because just suffering isn't productive either.
I think people can pack some shit, I know you got a lot of stuff. You got a lot of tools. I know you got roller bags and Pelican cases full of line gear and shit, but pack some protein powder with you. Pack some supplement, pack some greens or some reds or vitamins. Like there's stuff that you can pack with you that can really help you get through.
Totally. Yeah.
I've noticed actually recently, like undiagnosed ADHD, but I freaking know in my soul that I suffer with some things. I noticed like I started taking magnesium for sleep at night, but I started taking magnesium in the morning as well. And I don't know if this is a legit thing or not. It's just things I've been testing. I've noticed my ability to focus greatly improves the days I take magnesium in the morning versus the days I don't and I forget. Yeah. And it's like, it can be things like that just help you get you through if you start doing them, start testing and start. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's interesting because I think we feel like, we're eating all this food. We should be able to get all of the vitamins and minerals that we need from what we're eating. But I mean, the quality of the food that most of us eat on a daily basis is not there, or we're exerting ourselves, probably above the standard dosages. And so then you start realizing, man, I'm in the tank. I just did like a really extensive blood panel last January, and I try to do that every January just to see where I'm at with things. And this year I trained for I did a half Ironman and a 50K race, so I was pushing pretty hard physically, and all the other stuff that goes along with running a company. But when I got those tests back, like magnesium, zinc, and vitamin D, I mean, it hardly even showed up on the panel, and I just realized, oh my gosh, that's maybe why I feel the way that I do, because I felt like I was in a hole. And so I literally went on 4x of what the daily recommended amounts of those different vitamins and minerals, and it was made a huge difference for me. So magnesium for me, every night when I go to sleep, I have my Whoop. I can tell when I take magnesium and when I don't, in terms of my quality of sleep and recovery. So it's nice to be able to have data like that to make some of those decisions and understand, where are those deficiencies.
Yeah. I love that. Especially it's regional as well, right? Yeah. So that's why it is maybe important to do a blood panel, like you said. I've never done that. I think some people get scared of doing things like that. I know there's some mindset things I've had to fight through to go. Doctors, sorry. Yeah. I don't like going to doctors for some reason. I don't know where that comes from. Probably in my family too. They don't really go to doctors unless you're sick, right? You tough everything out until, but it's probably a good idea to start doing things like that on a regular basis just to help see where you're at so you can make changes and make small changes. Small changes equal big changes. Yeah. That's one of the biggest things that Whoop has and wearing a Whoop has taught me. For anyone who doesn't know what a Whoop is, it's just a wearable device that tracks a shit ton of different metrics. Yeah. And what it's shown me is it's given me real-time feedback that I can start making micro adjustments on the daily. And you don't have to make big drastic changes. Yeah. It's just if I drink, it shows up. So it's all right, do I want this to show up tomorrow? Do I want to have a green recovery? Or do I want to have a red recovery? Yeah. I could give up this drink tonight for a green recovery tomorrow. And hey, that's one choice I made that night. I made one drink, decided not to. okay, I got grain recovery tomorrow. I feel a lot better today.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I want to have this feeling again. And I've started doing that.
Yeah.
And now all of a sudden it's like from a drink a day, which I know a lot of you out there do, 1 or 2 or 3 or more a day, to down to like once a month. It's like at a Christmas party or going out for a social event with friends. And I really don't need it the rest of the time, which is freaking amazing. So I've gone from one small choice, one day to now I'm making those choices every day, and now scale that to whatever that is. So anyway, that's one of those things I really like about like making small decisions, and it doesn't have to be big every day.
And that's where I think data comes into play. Like you see that, and you look at your recovery on your app, and you're like, oh my gosh, I'm in the basement today, and I'm just 22% recovery, and like I don't drink a ton, but like one drink, like one beer. And I'll be like, go from like 80% recovery down to 20. And so like, I basically don't anymore. It's just like sparkling water. And it's not like, it's not that everyone needs to follow that path, but it's just like, I see for me what the data shows. And I'm like, this is just something that it's not worth it to me. And so that type of stuff really does help you make the behavior changes.
It's really cool with the tech too, because like you were saying about magnesium, like if you take magnesium, you see it the other way.
Yeah.
Whereas if you don't, so like this is the other data that you can start to see as well, is like you can start adding different vitamins and minerals to your daily routine and start tracking that. And it shows you in whatever kind of graph you want, it'll start showing you how it's affecting your body.
Yeah.
It's like improving your HRV.
Yeah.
Or whatever, improving your sleep, improving your recovery. Really neat, guys, to get one of these, like Aura makes them, Whoop, whatever. Yeah. Even Apple Watch is starting to add more and more value to like what it tracks as well.
Yeah. And again, you just realize that like all those things that impact recovery, it really does impact how you feel on a daily basis. Yeah. And it helps you make decisions that are going to help you dig out of those holes, especially if you're on like 4, 5, 6 days of like extended hours, you're not getting enough sleep. It just can help you dig out of that and pull back and get back on track.
How does Vimocity's mission empower individuals to start making different choices to find their purpose?
Yeah. Well, we're laser focused on serving utility, clean energy companies. And so, number one, it's just like the more that I, dig into this industry, the more respect I have for everyone who does this line of work. I mean, it is so physically demanding. Schedules are all over the place, but people are constantly putting themselves in a position to serve the community. So incredibly grateful for this line of work. What we've done is we just really found that like the way that sprain and strain injuries have typically been solved is through like, you've got to do this stretch and flex at the start of the day, maybe watch a training or do something like that. And we've really tried to take a different approach of much more of that educational approach where it's like, hey, let's teach you the fundamentals of how your body works and what you can do to maintain your muscle and joint health. So typically we give people like that baseline education. We give them the tools to be able to play an active role on a daily basis in whether that's preparation for activity like the rolling, the moving, or it's job task specific training that's showing people like, how do I optimize my body position when I'm pulling wire, working out of a bucket, climbing a pole. And then we also really try to integrate into the workday so that, some of that information can just be part of the pre-job conversation. It can be part of a safety moment at the start of a safety meeting, but this is also something that on a larger scale becomes a benefit. So we have like a phone application that helps people, if they're at home and they're like, man, I slept bad, my neck's tight, what do? They can go to the app and they can problem solve that. And so what we found is that we're really trying to help support a holistic, life of how to take care of your muscle and your joint health, how to have, resources on the recovery, resources on nutrition, hydration, sleep. So trying to make it much more of an ecosystem, because if people see taking care of their muscle and joint health and just their overall health as something that's more holistic, and it extends into the, beyond, that 5 minutes at the start of the day. It just becomes more of a lifestyle. And I oftentimes tell people that, like, you don't just brush and floss your teeth when you're at home. I mean, leave your toothbrush when you go on vacation. No, you do that, wherever you're going. It just becomes part of that habit. But for most people, we've never taught them those, like, that framework for how to take care of their muscles and their joints. And so then people are like, I don't even know what to do. Maybe I should stretch. Maybe I should, go for a run. I don't know what to do. And so really we try to help people understand that framework on how to take care of their bodies.
I love this because I just came across an Instagram page that was talking about back health. Mm-hmm. And I love this idea of integration into your entire life, like looking at it holistically in everything that you do, because I think we separate what we do in our personal time versus what we do in work time. And it can look different on every level, like including how you treat movement in the time that you're at work versus when you're at home or, at the gym. You move a lot differently lifting weights in the gym than you do just lifting a generator out on the job site, when it should be looked at similarly. Yeah. And this page that I saw was talking about back health, and you talked about like brushing your teeth. Well, it talked about like that as well. Like when you're leaning over the counter, like that's a time of strain on your lower back, and lower back problems are such big problems. And like, it just got you thinking differently about how you do that movement. So I love this because lots of people they're not even thinking that way. Yeah. Like, for some reason, it's like I can do different things while I'm at work than I can when I'm not at work. Yeah. When it shouldn't be thought about that way. It should be thought about holistically.
Yeah, totally. And that, is all aspects of safety. Like, do you wear your safety glasses when you're on the job, but not at home when you're mowing your yard? 100%. Stuff like that. But again, it's more of that framework for how to approach things. So like, we'll teach people like, how do you hip hinge properly? Like if you're in the gym, you're going to deadlift and you're going to do a hip hinge and you're going to use good mechanics. And when you do that, you're going to strengthen your body. Well, like you said, if you're lifting a generator at work, you should probably be positioning your body so that you're hip hinging, keeping it close to your center of gravity. When you're at Costco lifting your 40-pound bag of dog food into the trunk of your car, you should be hip hinging. And, so I think it's more of like, how do I live out these principles so that, what I'm doing? Because in both those scenarios, if you're lifting the dog food or you're lifting the generator, you're using a hip hinge, you're strengthening your body. Rather than breaking it down, but all it takes is, losing form, reaching out, and that can be a pretty big injury to somebody's lower back. So again, it's just that mindset of how do I live my life in a way in all aspects that I'm really thoughtful about how I approach it.
It's kind of like planning the movement too, right? Like, for example, would you at the gym do a deadlift and then like turn and put the deadlift, like put the weight on the back of a tailgate? It's the same sort of thing. Like, so planning that movement a little bit. So is it going to be straight into the back, or am I picking this thing up and then turning and blowing my freaking back out?
Yeah. So it's being thoughtful, but I think part of it is just having the education and creating that awareness of like, how you can navigate that. We also, what we found too is we have like a version of our app for household members. So like with all the companies that we work with, the spouses, partners, kids also get access. And man, we have so many stories of people saying like, I go home, we're watching TV at the end of the day, or our family's rolling out our muscles, we're like, doing these recovery stretches, things like that. So I think just fitting it into your day as well and thinking of it, more holistically is kind of cool. Because most people, they watch their kids out on the field getting ready for softball or, volleyball. And it's like, they're doing all this stuff. So it's like, let's make it just part of how we approach life.
My Theragun sits literally like on the stand right beside the couch. Yeah. So like if I'm watching TV, chances are I'm hitting some muscle group with the gun.
Yeah, totally.
What you mentioned awareness. So what role does mindset play in injury prevention and overall health?
Yeah, again, I think it's just being thoughtful about what you're doing. We can all go on autopilot really quickly and just not even, think about what we're doing. But, awareness in anything, whether we're talking about preventing serious injuries and fatalities. I mean, half of it is just being, aware what are the hazards that I need to be thoughtful of. Yeah. When you're approaching a job task, it's also like, what are the things that could potentially put strain on my body? How am I going to position my body when I'm performing this rather than just trying to get the work done? Like all those things really do impact it. So again, I think it's just having your head in the game.
How can employers help their teams identify and connect with their why?
Yeah, again,
because I see this as like the reason I asked this question in particular, like this is a disconnect out there. The disconnect is there's always a disconnect between employers and employees, and they have different goals a lot of the time when they need to align their goals.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So I see it as like, can we like get these goals aligned? Like employers want to reduce health and safety numbers because it costs a lot of money when employees hurt themselves. And employees don't want to hurt themselves because it also costs themselves a lot of money.
Yeah.
And amongst other things, lifestyle, if they hurt themselves. But like, how can they work together on that?
Yeah. And what I would say is that I feel like we work with some really forward-thinking companies. Like I know the executives really well, and it's like they see their employees as their greatest asset. I know that's not true across the board. I mean, for some organizations, it's just cog in the wheel. But I would say that the forward-thinking companies that I've seen, they've just realized that their workforce, they're in it for the long haul with them. They want them to live a great life, retire strong, be able to do all those things that they care about. And so they take the time to invest in giving them the education, giving them that bigger picture of the why, helping them know that they're important and that, doing stuff is not just to check the box. It's really about making sure that they're ready to go, fit for duty, ready to perform their work. I would say that, I think that there's a strong link between, again, some of the conversation that's happening about serious injuries and fatalities and, what's happening just with like musculoskeletal injuries. Musculoskeletal injuries are like 40% of all the injuries that occur on the job. We do surveys all the time. We know that like 80% of the workforce at any given time, they're experiencing pain. I mean, you stand in, I have literally spoken to tens of thousands of linemen over my career. And every time I ask them, like, how many of you are dealing with pain right now? It's like probably 100% of the hands go up. It's like, it's just part of that. And so when people are in pain, we know that their heads aren't in the game. They're distracted. Their brains physiologically are not functioning. And so that does put them at higher risk. And so again, making sure that people are not just identifying hazards on the job site, but also thinking about like, am I fit for duty? Am I ready to actually work today? And you know what, maybe we need to take an extra 5 minutes and roll out a couple muscles, make sure we do some stuff to get our, our neck loosened up so that when we go up in a bucket for 3 hours, we're actually ready to perform that job task. Because when you're in pain, it's all you can think about. And so I think that those are some things that people can do. And again, of course, like, I'm a big advocate of taking some of these steps like we talked about, the rolling, breathing, moving before you do the job. I always tell people, like, we'll do a 360 walk around of our vehicle. We'll inspect our bucket. We'll maintain our tools. We'll inspect our tools before we use them. But for most people, it's like they don't take that 3 to 5 minutes to do a 360 walk around of their body, or just make sure that they're actually ready to perform. And I think that's one of the most important things that people can do on a daily basis.
I love this. And I think that employees to second. So if like your employer is going to invest time, effort, money in programs like yours or any other ones that are going to help with these sorts of things, it's your job then to take it serious.
Yeah.
because like a lot of people just like brush it off. This is another safety thing that we got to do or whatever. Kick our feet up on the table during this safety meeting. It's not just a safety meeting.
Yeah.
It's not. We're not here to like tick boxes. This is actually an investment in your future and ours. So take it serious. So that's the best thing you can do is take it serious.
But if, to your point, if people don't have that why, they're just going to be like, oh, my company's making me do this, or this is stupid. But if you have the bigger why, then you're going to look at that and you're going to be like, thank goodness, like I'm giving this time so I can like get prepared for the job. It's just a totally different mindset. And it's hard to reach people. I mean, 90% of the time when I go to speak, it's like they're usually arms crossed, like people kicking back in the back of the room, and they're like, why the heck am I here? But man, when you start to like give people that bigger vision, like you start to see the arms uncross, you start to realize that, you know, this does matter to people. And I've never met a person in my life who doesn't want to feel better. Yeah. Like when you really break through some of those walls, like it is amazing. People are like, okay. And I mean, we see that over and over again. Once we take people through that education, they get to the end of it, and it's like always like 99% of people are like, hey, this is great. It was worth my time. Yeah. Like I felt a personal benefit from it. So
it'd be hard to find somebody that wouldn't take the magic pill that was, hey, could I make, if I could give you a pill that would make you feel better instantly, would you take it?
Yeah.
No, I'll pass. It's like, whatever. The pill is you just got to put in a little work and some time and you can get there. Like 90% I'm sure can, you know, fix their shoulder injury or their back problem or whatever it is. Totally. Get their pain to go away, but it's going to take some time and effort on your part to do it.
Totally. And Ryan, it's one of those things. It's like we were talking about some deep stuff like bigger why, and like sometimes it's just, hey, I like to bow hunt and my shoulder's not feeling good. And so that person's why is like, I just want to get to the end of get into archery season and actually be able to pull my bow back. Hey, that's a win because they at least have something that is guiding them. It's like, I like to fish. Well, you know, if you're feeling better, you can do that. I like to elk hunt. Like you want your knees to be in shape so you can pack out an animal for, 12 miles. So like whatever that why is, it could be something bigger picture. It could be just, hey, this is what I want to do here. But you have to have that motivation. And then it becomes something that, it's, that's deeper seated for them.
Some of these utility workers, what have you seen for like the big heavy hitting obstacles that are in the way from helping them figure out what that purpose or what that why is? Like, what are some of the big obstacles that you've seen?
I mean, it's always time is probably the biggest obstacle. I mean, people already have like 50% more work on their plate than they can even handle in the amount of time that they have. So like, this stuff that we're talking about is just one more thing that's added to their plate. So that's why I think it's so important that if companies or people try to integrate anything into their life, it just has to seamlessly fit into that. It just has to be like 30 seconds here, a minute there. It needs to be just a quick conversation so that people can get their heads in the game during a pre-job brief. Like it's got to be easy. Like you talked about getting your Theragun when you're sitting there at the end of the day. It's like, it's not like it has to fit in this one box. It's just, I mean, I was pumping gas last night on my way to the airport and I'm doing like a couple moves to loosen up my hamstrings and my lower back because I did a bunch of yard work yesterday. So it's just, how does that fit into your day?
Yeah. I love that. If people could take one thing away from this particular episode about finding their why and their purpose, what would you want it to be?
Yeah, just to be thoughtful about it and ask some of those questions like, why would it matter like 20 years from now if I had this outcome of, feeling broken down, not feeling great because I've been continued down this path, but then what could it look like 20 years from now if I took small steps on a consistent basis so that I could optimize the way that I move and feel? And, in either of those circumstances, why would it be important that, maybe I made this choice and who would be impacted by it? Like what is, my bigger reason for wanting to, make small choices that are going to send me down this path versus this path. And then having that be a part of your decision. I'll never forget this one guy that we worked with. He sent me a letter. This was pretty early on when we started Vimocity. He put a picture of his granddaughter on the dash of his line truck because he wanted to take her to Disneyland, and he had chronic lower back pain. Like, just to stand for 20 minutes, he'd just be aching. And he's like, I led this workshop, spoke with him, and he's like, man, this is what I want to be able to do. 6 months from now in the spring, I want to take my granddaughter. He's like, but I'll just be like in so much pain. And so we mapped out, okay, here are like 3 simple things that you can do on a consistent basis. So he had the picture on his dash. He looked at it. He stayed on top of it with those things. And then I just got a random note like, hey, I went on this trip with my granddaughter to Disneyland, like no lower back pain. Cool. I felt, all that fear that I had, I was able to actually do something about it. And so that guy, just felt so empowered to be able to, change what his story looked like through knowledge and then application. So again, I think it just goes back to like, what is it that motivates you, and how do you set that goal? And then it helps you achieve that discipline. And again, it's not going to be something massive. It's just the small steps on a consistent basis. And it's usually about 10 different small things that you're doing that really make a difference.
It's like every end of these things is hard. Like it's hard to be in shape, and it's also hard to be fat. Yeah. Like it's hard to be big and out of shape. Like it's like choose your hard. It's hard to live with pain, and it's hard to live without pain. Yeah. But choose your hard.
Yeah.
Like you can fix everything in the middle, or probably 90% of it, unless it's like something extreme that you've had happen to you and it's like non-fixable. But chances are you can probably fix most things given some time and some effort.
Yeah. And what we're talking about, there are exceptions to that, but in my practice, and this is why I started Vimocity too, because like I literally spent day in, day out working on patients, and literally like everyone was coming in with almost the exact same things as like lower back pain, neck pain, shoulder pain, knee pain. And like the thing that helped those people fix those problems, it was a consistent pattern, and it wasn't that much effort. It was just consistently doing the right stuff. And there was like 5% of people that, I did have to send to an orthopedist. They just, there was a major problem there. But I think the thing that was encouraging to me is that like literally about 95% of the things that I saw on a daily basis, if people had the right education and tool set and knowledge, they could fix or dramatically improve most of those things on their own. And that's I think the thing that we should all feel encouraged about is that, a lot of this stuff, you can at least make it better.
Amazing.
Yeah.
So this is going to be a 3-part series. This first episode is all about your purpose and finding your why and finding your purpose. To help set up the second episode, which is human capacity and troubleshooting your body, dive a little bit deeper on, okay, well, how do we figure this out? What's going on with us? To set that up, can you explain the capacity model and how it relates to human performance?
Yeah, for sure. So, one thing that I so appreciate about Quanta is this company has really shaped the industry in terms of how we look at workplace safety. And the capacity model, I think, is one of the best frameworks that's come along in terms of helping people understand how are we going to, prevent the stuff that kills us. And what's interesting is from a sports medicine standpoint, I spent my whole career in athletics, and in athletics, you think about how do you build capacity in the human, because the environment you can't control. Like you go out on a football field, it's like you have no idea what you're going to experience out there. So you have to train the human body so that it has that resilience, it has the capacity to be able to perform at a high level. I always joke, like if I were to take the ball one time in an NFL game and try to run it, there'd be a serious injury or fatality that would happen. You know what I mean? Totally. And it would be me. And it's because like I don't have that physical capacity and resilience to handle that. But then you look at these NFL running backs, they'll handle the ball 32 times in a game and just bounce back up. And it's because they're doing all the things to continue to strengthen their body, create that resilience. And so I really feel like a big opportunity in utility construction is how do we, marry this human resilience building with the capacity model, because when people have greater resilience, they're in less pain, they're more focused, they're fit for duty, their heads in their game, the game hazard recognition is going to go up. People are going to be able to, think more clearly, perform their tasks in a way that probably is at less risk. So I do see that there's a combination between how we create that human resilience and marry that with the capacity model. And, all this at the end of the day is just so that people go home safely and, we don't have to experience, the serious injuries and fatalities that have happened historically in this industry. And I believe we can avoid those.
I freaking love this because I think you're 100% on. It's almost like the spin-off benefit from this is you get to live a better life outside of work.
Yeah.
Because you're alive, probably, because you're making better decisions even while you're at work. But I love the thought of this, like more integration and more thinking about like your human experience through this all.
Yeah.
It's a big deal.
No, I look forward to that conversation because I think that this is an awesome opportunity for us to just elevate everyone.
Cool, guys. All right. Tune in episode 2. We'll be talking about human capacity and how to troubleshoot your body. Thanks for listening.
Awesome. Thanks so much.
I hope you guys got some value out of that episode. I hope you enjoyed it. I just want to draw your awareness to a couple of other things. So we make these podcasts, yes, but it's not the only thing that we put out as far as content. Our social medias are full of valuable cuts from the podcast itself, as well as just a bunch of other educational stuff and entertainment. So go follow us at Powerline Podcast on all social media platforms. And then also YouTube. I don't think that a lot of you are aware of this, but we don't just load these podcasts onto YouTube. We also make vlogs, which are super educational, entertaining, great place to direct people to learn about the industry, learn about the trade, or just learn about what's going on within either Quanta or the Powerline industry in general. So hit up our YouTube channel. Again, it's at Powerline Podcast. You can catch those vlogs on there. We also load a bunch of other extra content in video form. We try to up the quality every time we do this. We try to up that quality. So hit up the YouTube channel. Make sure you're subbed to all those platforms. Appreciate you guys. Hope to see you again soon. We'll see you again soon. Peace.